Okay, you are live.
All right. Well, we'll call the meeting of the Old Town Laverne Business Improvement District to order. This is May the 3rd, our regular meeting. And we have a couple of one change and one new addition for the board this morning. I want to welcome and congratulate Matt. Has been approved by the City Council to move from an alternate position to a full regular board position. Congratulations, Matt. We appreciate your support over the last several years. And
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And want to welcome Sean Franco, who is, along with his wife, Dory, our new owners of Chase's Restaurant. And Sean has agreed to join our group and take Matt's place as the alternate. And Sean, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sean is Ontario High School. Is that correct? High school?
That's correct. Yeah. I had to take today off because we got a bunch of new restaurant equipment coming in. But yes, I do teach at Ontario High School.
Two good jobs going there. You teach the kids and then you get to feed your belly at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I gained about 50 pounds already too.
All right. Well, we have a couple of items on today that I think will take up our time real well. Let's have call the roll, please, Natalie.
Mr. Forgy?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Franco? Ms. Run? Here. Ms. Stark? And Chairperson Walters.
Here. Let's we'll start off with the calendar. Are any of those items things we need to discuss at this point, Eric?
I would just point out, I put on here that your annual protest hearing is scheduled for Monday, June 7th before the City Council. We did have a public comment regarding this item as well, just questioning what it was. This is where every year the board, typically Chair Walters, would give a presentation, the annual report to the City Council. We go over the proposed budget, which you have recommended adoption of at this point. And then per state law, it reestablishes the boundaries and the assessment formula for the district itself. So we do this every year. Most of it's it's a public hearing so that members of the district can participate if they wish. And so just want to point out that that's going to the council on June 7th. So I encourage you to put that on your calendar so that way at least you can watch and or participate during that meeting.
Great. And I neglected to say that if you are watching this, not part of the board, but if you're watching this and you have any comments that you would like to make, you can send an email to Eric at planning, PLANNING at cityoflaverne.org. Do we have any that have come in since that one you sent out this morning?
No other ones received.
Okay, very good. So then let's move on to approval of the minutes from April the 5th. If there are no changes, we need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's move on to the craft fair. Eric?
Actually, I'd ask that we push this off. The person that's asked to be on the meeting hasn't signed on yet. So let's give them some additional time and move on, and we'll bring it back at the end.
That's fine. I should also note that Mayor Hepburn is on the call. And Leah from the Chamber of Commerce is also on our call this morning on our meeting. So let's jump to item 4B, Monero Square update.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep the board updated on where we're at with this project. It has been delayed, unfortunately, primarily due to COVID. At one point, you'll recall that there was a cell tower that was basically proposed to go in here that went through the approval process. And then they ended up backing out of that in the midst of COVID. They were reassessing their locations, and this one came off of their list of projects. And so we finally are now moving forward. We have construction drawings that are at 90% completed, to where we can now advertise it out to bid, to have contractors give us prices, bid proposals for the construction. One thing I did want to see if I could get some feedback on, there is that existing pergola structure in Monero Square. The plans, as with the redesign and the stage and everything having to shift over, didn't include that remaining. It had that going away. Our public works department believes that it could be preserved and potentially relocated within the plaza. And then it would need some TLC also, because it has vines growing on it to where they don't believe there's any structural damage, but it probably has some cosmetic things that would have to be addressed too. So I didn't know if the board had a position or feelings on whether they felt that the pergola that's been there is an important aspect to be retained, or if you'd rather go in a fresh new start without the pergola.
Eric, do you know how long the pergola's been there?
Well, Craig probably can answer it better than me. It's when we redid Monero Square in the 90s, Craig?
Yeah, it's been there quite a while when we reoriented the that pathway to the University of Laverne lot, reconfigured things. So it's been there quite a while. I personally, I don't have a problem with it. I kind of like it if it fits in the design. It's been quite a while since we looked at the plans. Maybe, Eric, if you have a chance, you could send out the latest drawing for everybody to update their heads. Not right now, but at some point. But personally, if you can fit it and it works, I don't have a problem with that.
I kind of agree with Craig because I think it looks nice. It adds a little bit of ambiance down there. So I think if we could preserve it, it wouldn't be a bad thing, but it does have to fit with the new design.
Looks like that might be the consensus feeling. What I'll do is I will send out the site plan with a sketch in of where we think that it might fit. It will be tighter than it is today just because, we have the stage now, but I'll put in where we think that it can go. And then if we could have some feedback from you individually back to me, I'd appreciate that.
Great. Okay, let's move on down to a topic of much discussion, the D Street closure. And Eric, you want to take the lead on that?
Sure. As you might remember, at our last month's meeting, we had a discussion about, what we thought the game plan might be in terms of reopening D Street. And I don't think Mickey or Marianne were at that meeting. So it wasn't a full discussion, obviously. But just not knowing, knowing that the yellow tier, which we're scheduled to potentially go into this week in LA County, still had the 50% restriction on restaurants inside, to where there's really no difference for the restaurant users from the orange to yellow tier. And at that point, it was decided that there wasn't really any pressing need to make a decision on what we were going to do with D Street or when it might reopen at that time, just because there was a lot of unknowns. The day after our meeting was when the governor came out with June 15th as a potential fully reopening date, right? So we didn't have that knowledge when we met last time. So it would have been nice if we would have had that, because it would have definitely helped to direct that conversation. But now with the anticipation that June 15th will be all green, basically, with no real restrictions besides potential mask wearing. That's what it sounds like. Those details haven't been released, but that seems like a logical date that the street could be reopened. I had heard word that there was a petition circulating to reopen the street immediately. I received that after our last month's meeting. And so that was part of your packet, signed by several businesses on D Street that are asking that the street be opened immediately. We also have, and then the direction that the board gave last month was for us to reach out to those restaurant users specifically who are utilizing D Street to see what their plans would be, especially if ABC does not extend their permits to operate and to serve alcohol outside of the normal areas of those restaurant spaces. Recognizing that's probably a key component on the decisions on several of those restaurants downtown. ABC hasn't given us really much besides the fact that all the restaurants will be noticed at least 30 days prior to any changes of their temporary rules. So in the next 2 weeks, I would expect if they are going to do that, that the restaurants would be notified. I'm on the list to be notified as well, but today we just simply don't know if that's one thing they're going to do. So with full reopening at the state level, the counties indicated they're going to follow along with that. It just seemed like that was kind of probably a date to circle, at least in terms of potential reopening. So with the survey of the restaurants, we had a wide range of responses. We had some that indicated that, because we also asked if they would be interested in doing a modified version where they'd only be occupying the parking spaces in front of their restaurants and allow the street to be open to vehicles and some parking where there isn't restaurants today. Some restaurants said they have no interest in doing such a setup. That's Roberta's and Spooner's. Then we had restaurants that said, well, we would like to take advantage of this parking spaces. And by the way, most of those restaurants in their responses were very clear and grateful to the city and the board for allowing them to operate outside over these last couple months. Because they literally saved some of their businesses, they've indicated. So they all expressed that thanks. And so Cafe Wong and House of Wings, and I believe Argo, said that they like the setup, but if we reopen the street, they would want to take advantage of the parking spaces. And then Lawrenceburg submitted late Thursday signatures. Basically, it looks like saying we should keep the street closed indefinitely. According to them and their customers for their outdoor dining. So, like I said, it's a wide range of responses. It wasn't, everybody's not on the same page in terms of what their personal desires are, but we have always recognized that this was going to be a difficult decision when we did close this down, and at some point the reopening was going to have to happen. And at this point, what I'm looking for is obviously a discussion and hopefully a recommendation. We will take this to the city council. Because we expect that unless there's a giant fourth wave of COVID, which it doesn't appear will be, that this will be a permanent decision. This isn't going to be temporary like it was back in the late fall when we knew that there'd be a reopening at some reduced level. This looks like this will be permanent. So the K-rails will go away, the trees will go away, and the street will be basically reopened to whatever extent the direction that your recommendation and ultimately what the city council signs off on.
Eric, just a clarification. So your belief, cities or whoever's belief is that June 5th, if this intent from the governor follows through, we would be back to 100% for the restaurants. Is that correct?
June 15th, and that's what it's indicated to be. There hasn't been any, whether or not they have like a 3-foot table separation or a maximum party per table, all that still hasn't been clarified. But what it sounds like is that there really won't be any restrictions placed on businesses as of June 15th. And so that's all we can go off of today.
Okay. Comments?
So does that mean, Eric, for the time being, if we decide to open it, it will be on June 15th if the governor lifts everything? It won't be before that?
Again, if the board feels that it should be sooner, then I plan on taking this item to the city council at their first meeting in June. I believe that's June 3rd, as an item for them to discuss. So it couldn't be, well, I guess I shouldn't say it couldn't be. If the board was really adamant that by May 30th that we have to reopen the street, then I would try to take it to the council their May 17th meeting or whatever. But right now I planned on taking it to them at their June 3rd meeting for that decision. And if the board's direction is to say, hey, let's be in front of this, let's make sure that before the 15th, everything's reopened, then that's what the recommendation to the city council will be. I'm going to carry your recommendation as a board onto them, but ultimately they'll be the ones to make that decision.
Well, I personally feel that we should keep it closed till June 15th to be 100% sure they're going to open us up. A lot of these dates have been set and then they get moved or pushed back. And the businesses here in Laverne, especially out here, I know that I would like to hear from Nikki because I know she's a little bit on the other side of this, but the restaurants have suffered drastically this last year. And being 50% inside and then 100% well outside would give them still the time to try to recoup some of their money for the last year that they've been up and down. So I personally would like to see us give them a little bit more of a break to try to get back some of their retail, some of their sales. But that's my opinion.
I agree. I definitely think we should not reopen the street until at least June 15th, or maybe even later, depending on what's going on. The restaurants are thriving now. People love it. I mean, I would like to see the street permanently closed possibly and, you know, redesigned so there's no curb. And I know I have a friend in Whittier. They're doing that to their little downtown. And I like the idea of the restaurants also having outdoor eating in the parking spots, but it looks like it's just Cafe Wing, Argo, and House of Wings. But, you know, Claremont looks really nice. They did a really nice job building those outdoor things. And that gives, I think it gives us a little bit, just a little bit better look than all parking. Obviously, when the college opens, there's going to be no parking. So then it's going to be a different thing. But I would think we could possibly consider staying open. I mean, keeping the street closed maybe through the summer until the college opens, but we could do it month by month as well.
I agree with Nikki on this. I've had a lot of, obviously, many clients coming through this last, because it's tax season. They have done nothing but compliment that setup and they think it's fantastic. So I think it really has brought something different down here. And I think we're going to see a lot more cities doing this. So it would be great to try to keep it open at least until and then address it when the university, or closed, I'm sorry, until the university comes back and we address parking by then. But if the university isn't back till August, I don't see why we can't at least keep it closed down till the end of summer.
And just from the university side, we are going to start our phase return in June 1st. So we're going to start bringing back staff. Every 2 weeks, we're going to start incrementally opening up buildings to where we're at the point on middle of August, we should have everybody here ready for the new semester to begin.
Okay.
If I could chime in here, if you don't mind, Craig.
Sure.
I concur with Mickey and also with Marianne. And my issue is this seesaw of our present governor has been so devastating to these local businesses. Even our Los Angeles County supervisors, except for Barger and Hahn, trying to keep our restaurants open when they closed in December. I'm very apprehensive. The only thing I would say is that obviously the ABC license part would be an issue, but I think so many people are used to sitting outside now, and I travel quite a distance through California. I'm telling you, they put up permanent structures, Little Italy down in San Diego, even down in the Gaslamp district, permanent structures, not just tents, but permanent structures. That this style of dining is going to be something that the Californians, the Europeans have been doing it forever, and now we're picking up because of COVID. But a couple fold. I'm just concerned that this June 15th date is the same as is it going to really be that way? And then really revisit it as just a, you know, as one person on the council. We're going to do whatever you guys want to do and support you in any way. But being a businessman and a business owner like all of you people, we need to have a path, and we need to keep a path if it's going to mean our businesses being successful. But I'd say cautiously approach. I think the June 15th date is something we need to look at. But I mean, even down the road, I think it's just been an absolute gift that you guys have done, the city has done, and closed that thing down. It's been just really, really, really good for the businesses. And I don't want to harm them in any way and have this seesaw effect, whether we're out of COVID or not. You know, They may change their mind in a drop of a hat, and then we're all left in the dust again. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. We'll do anything that you guys want us to do as far as, because we want to make sure the businesses all thrive and survive. And this has been so tough for everyone. And we need to cautiously approach this June 15th deadline. And I would say, I would agree that myself personally would be to keep it closed until we know we have some better vision moving forward.
Thank you. Matt, any comments?
I agree that it's been an overall positive having the street closed. I think I've heard from a lot of customers that they enjoy it and they think it's great having all the outside seating for the restaurants. There were some comments submitted from businesses that were in favor of reopening. So I don't think it's all been perfect. And there were some concerns raised in those comments about cleanliness of the street and whose responsibility it is to keep it clean, and some concerns about public drunkenness and conduct. So that part I think is hard for us to manage or advise on. But if we're talking about permanent closure, we would need a lot more information. I assume there'd have to be traffic studies done, and we would need some advice from City Council on how that would move forward, how that process would go. Is there any indication of exploring that possibility, Eric?
Our Public Works Department has already indicated they cannot support permanent closure of D Street. It's a main thoroughfare connecting street from Arrow Highway to Foothill Boulevard. No other, B Street doesn't even do that. So it's really the primary connector between Wheeler and White. It's really the main street. So they did not see them supporting a permanent closure of that street.
Would they support at least a temporary till the end of summer?
Yeah, I think, as long as it's temporary, they didn't have a concern about how long it would go. The school coming back into session would make sense as a reason to reopen it for both the parking and the circulation. But we just know that there's been some push from non-restaurant users to reopen the street. Obviously, you have that letter. And so without any restrictions potentially on the restaurants in June 15th, that's why I put this on the agenda today to talk about, to where if it was your direction, we can make sure that everything was set in place to do that at that time. But if you have a feeling that you'd rather see it go through summer, then we can definitely do that. And when we do the annual report to the council in June 7th, then we'll talk about that then, right? So I'm gonna take your message that you're gonna provide to me this morning onto the city council for their next meeting.
How does Public Works feel about going into the parking spots? And how would we, so let's say we have to open D Street back up, but we want to allow the restaurants to use the parking spots in front of their businesses to have extra seating. How does Public Works feel about that? Because we would have to put permanent structures up to prevent anybody, like cars going by, because it's kind of narrow when you go down that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a reduction in the size of the outdoor dining space. Those are pretty steep diagonal parking spaces. And there would have to be some kind of structure, K-rail alignment to protect diners that would be in that area with vehicles coming by. Some of the comments we received was that they don't feel their customers would be very excited about it, but if it was all they can get, then they would still take it, basically. There would have to be, they have to submit plans to us, and then the restaurants would be responsible for building out those spaces on their own. And I can tell you that somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 is what it will cost each restaurant to build out their space. So there's a significant cost to them, as well as some additional safety measures that have to be put in place to make sure that the patrons are protected.
Would they be allowed to do something like Cafe Allegra and be out on the sidewalk?
Yeah, we had already had that plan in place pre-COVID, where restaurants can apply for sidewalk dining, and a plan. And how that works is, everybody, I believe, got 2 tables and 4 chairs automatically for free. And then if they wanted more than that, then they go through a process with the city for an encroachment permit and paying basically the ground lease for the space that they would be occupying. We had all that in place prior to COVID. So we obviously extended that out further, and we didn't have, nobody's paying for lease space at this point. But eventually, once it gets back to normal, that would probably be a scenario that would be reviewed.
Well, I've got I guess a number of perspectives on this, something I've thought a lot about. It's hard to believe it's been a year, and I don't think a year ago we would have expected we'd be still talking about this. Number one, it's been a huge success as far as helping really save some of our restaurants downtown. No question about that. And it's been a great example of the city and the businesses working together. The ambiance of having people on the street, I think, is also a huge plus. I believe that we have more people out walking around the streets and dining, et cetera, downtown, especially on the weekends, than we did pre-COVID. I've always been a big fan of sidewalk and outdoor dining. Allegro, when they kind of led the way on that in Old Town, and hugely successful. I think that one grew mainly out of necessity because their indoor space was so small, but it's been a huge addition. And then other than that, you've got Roberta's has had a few tables, but I've been kind of surprised that more of the restaurants haven't taken advantage of tables outside. I have mixed feelings about closing the street permanently. I think losing the connection to Bonita and on up to Foothill would potentially be a big detriment to Old Town. So I'd want to look at that very carefully before recommending anything permanent. Going along with what I just said, I would strongly want to encourage the restaurants to expand and utilize the public space, the sidewalk space, to add tables, umbrellas. What Allegro created was basically an extended patio on the sidewalk, and I don't know that would be the case everywhere, but certainly there are options along those lines. One wild card here is the ABC, and I don't have any problem saying let's recommend to the city council that we keep the existing situation in place until that date in August or right before then when the school reopens. But a lot of this is dependent on the ABC, and if they say you can't have street alcohol service, then there's no point in keeping those out there, I don't believe. But I think the process, things change quickly. That's what we've learned. And so the process of getting restaurants signed up and through the process to have tables outside on an ongoing basis, I don't think we want to wait until August to start that. We should be encouraging people to think ahead now. I'm not opposed to the little seating areas like they have in Claremont. I actually think they're very attractive and add to the ambiance, and they're the ones that I've seen there, like at 42nd Street Bagel and Arufo's are very well designed. You wouldn't even think they were, and I don't know if they're intended to be permanent. Do you know anything about that, Eric?
No, not permanent. They're semi-permanent. The city, my understanding, it told them they expected that at least to allow them to have them into the fall. But there is it's not forever.
Well, for a passerby, you'd think they were a permanent extension. They're that well made. So I'm not opposed to that idea either. However, the age-old issue we've fought has been street parking on D Street. And then finally, there's no question that for some of the businesses, this can be a negative, losing the access and the parking. So we need to keep that in mind. I guess the bottom line for me now is we're still in a bit of a wait and see if the governor's order holds, see if the county follows along with allowing the 100%. But it sounds, Eric, like there's a consensus to keep the status quo in place until mid-August. Jason, what was the date? When does your class start?
We start August 23rd is the first day of class. But we anticipate having students arrive the previous week.
So probably mid-August, 15th, something like that. Eric, do you need something in the form of a motion at this point? Would you like that?
Yeah, just because, yeah, I do want to, I'll share this with the council, you know, at your annual meeting on the 7th. We do have a meeting, the next regular meeting of the board is on that morning of the 7th, but I have to write a report in advance of that. So whatever your motion is today, I'm going to share with them for that discussion on the June 7th.
Has there ever been a discussion about expanding the sidewalk? Is there any way of doing that?
I mean, making them wider?
Yeah, well, we're talking about the businesses building out structures and parking lots, but can we just pave it? I mean, I know that's not, you can't just pave it, but has there ever been a discussion of expanding them?
So basically taking out the parking spots permanently.
Yeah.
So you couldn't park on D Street or on that one block. You just could drive through it.
Right.
No, there's some infrastructure problems with that, drainage primarily. You know, where the curb and gutter are now, the crown of the street's high to where you build that out, where does it, how do you get the drainage? Now you're talking about pipes or other things that are problematic, but no, the city has not explored permanently removing parking spaces and building out sidewalk area or raised curb.
You know, there's one thing that, and Tim mentioned this, I remember a long time ago being in Europe and visiting a small town, don't even remember where, and I was just blown away by, they had it set up so that during the day it was a normal street, and then in the evenings the street was closed, restaurants brought out more tables, it was a pedestrian street, and it just, you know, it was just a perfect, you know, summer way to spend the evening. And I know that creates other problems, but I think I'm mentioning this just to say it doesn't have to be black and white. There could be many different scenarios considered. I think that for our purposes today, maybe what we do is if we're all in consensus to request that the closures stay in place until mid-August. And but in the meantime, perhaps we can explore a little bit of what some of the other options could be. And Eric, I don't know how you feel about that, but I think it would be worth at least exploring that, and you know, rather than just making a off-the-cuff decision. Would anybody like to make a motion regarding the continued closure?
I would like to,
The only-
continue the closure until university comes back.
Marianne made a motion. Do we have a second?
The only thing I'd like to add to that is if we see, you know how hot it gets in the summer, if we see that in July and August, nobody is using the outdoor seating because it's so hot, they're all going inside, I think that we should obviously think about that. You know, if it's not being used, then we would open earlier.
And the ABC, if the ABC next week says, well, 30 days from now or June 15th, you know, you can't serve out there, I think that's another trigger. So, so Marianne made a motion to continue it to the middle of August. And Marianne, would you accept with the caveats that if it's not being used in the heat, or if ABC restricts service, that could change.
Mhm.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Can I
Eric?
ask Eric one more question? Eric, when the gold line comes through, because I know that the Public Works is saying that D Street is a main thoroughfare down to Arrow. What will happen to E Street where the platform is going to be? Does that make that now a thoroughfare through going up and across?
Well, the street doesn't change. The street still stays open like it is today. Both streets will be open to traffic.
But I mean,
But E Street basically dead ends at 8th Street, right? So it doesn't
Right.
go all the way up. That's all. But the platform is east of E Street. It's not in the middle of the street. So it'll be just like it is today with the train track. Instead of one train track there at E Street, there'll be 3. But everything else stays the same.
do you think it's possible that more people will come into Laverne entering on E because of that? Or do you think they'll stay going up D?
I think vehicle traffic shouldn't change because of the gold line.
Okay.
You'll have more pedestrian people getting off the train and walking to downtown. But I don't see why the vehicle traffic on E Street would change with the gold line.
All right, thank you for that.
Okay. Is that good enough direction for you, Eric?
Yeah, and then, again, I'm gonna have a report written for the council meeting, but on June 7th at your next meeting, if we know something more then, that either ABC's been pulled or something else has happened, or there's still restrictions on restaurants under the governor's order at that point, we'll know what's supposed to happen on the 15th, a week later, to where we can give an update to the council that night if the board wishes to take a different stance on this item on the 7th. So this isn't just set in stone. Recognize that we're going to talk about this every month, but even then, when we go to the council on the 7th, we could potentially provide them with an update once we know more than what we know today.
Any other comments on this? All right. Is our craft fair person on yet?
They are not.
Okay.
I've emailed them and I have not received a response. So they did prepare a PowerPoint presentation. I guess I would suggest that we just wait until they could participate to tell you what their ideas were about it. So unless they sign in the next couple of minutes, I would say we probably reschedule them for next month's meeting.
Okay. Let's move on to committee reports, city.
Yeah, I just have on here that the Planning Commission at their last meeting on April 14th approved the new AT&T cell tower, basically mounted at the top of the university's parking structure. So people in Old Town area that have AT&T services should see an improvement in their coverage, probably 6 to 8 months from now is my best guess, maybe a little bit longer. I don't know if Jason knows more about their construction schedule, but usually it takes a while to get through the FCC and building permits, but there'll be new towers and mounted to the top of the existing parking structure.
Good. Jason, anything additional?
Nothing new to report.
And Mickey, anything on your side?
No, nothing really to report. I've been boosting a few ads. People aren't really taking advantage of that. So I guess maybe I'll send out another email letting them know we can boost an ad for $10, and I'll send out another email.
Question for Jason. We may have discussed this before, but the parking lot remaining open to the public, is that going to go away come August, it looks like, or?
I believe so at this point, at least by August 23rd. I think I can hold it open to the public for as long as we can. But we're going to need to have that parking returned to the university with the expectation that we'll be face to face.
What percentage do you anticipate of students in the fall, Jason?
It's a good question because the metrics kind of moving. We're still required to have 6 feet of separation. So it'll probably be a 50% occupancy. But at the same time, we hear rumors that it might drop down to 3 feet separation. Classroom capacity might increase. But right now, we're just kind of wait and see. We do plan on 50% occupied. And if it increases, great. But we'll plan on both scenarios.
Okay. Great. Leah, what's going on with the chamber?
Good morning. May 26th is our annual Teacher of the Year. We're doing a virtual awards presentation this year with a custom website and live stream video presentation. A big thank you to all of our Old Town Laverne businesses for supporting this event with sponsorships and goodie bag donations. And we have started a new program last month called Let's Do Lunch. The concept is based on a cash mob type of environment where we choose a different restaurant and just tell everybody go have lunch there today. It's a way for us to provide some spontaneous networking opportunities without having a scheduled face-to-face networking event. So Wednesday, May 12th, we will be back in Old Town at Lordsburg Tap House.
Great. I'd like to go back to revisit in the calendar the Cool Cruise. I've heard from a few people that participate in that they received information right away after our last meeting that it was going to be on. And I assume, Eric, that everything is proceeding according to schedule. But are there any special plans for crowd control or concerns? Or are we just figuring that after June 15th, it can be business as usual on the street?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're waiting for further direction on how those kind of events can occur, right? So there's some direction today. Those are ticketed events, mostly, not public events such as the Cool Cruise, where it's publicly accessible and you can't really limit the number of people. You know, we're kind of up against the same thing, just to be honest, about 4th of July and our normal events that can happen on 4th of July and what these requirements from the state and county are going to be in terms of what kind of events can we still have. And it's really difficult. I'm sure you know in your professional career, Craig, and you have these events are planned out months and months in advance to where it's so difficult to just try to plan it, but still also have to pivot, hopefully pivot and not just postpone as we have in the past. And that's what the car promoter, Craig, has been faced with every time we put out a new date, feels it's far enough out and it hadn't been. And so finally, I think it's very possible that the September 11th date's going to be good and hold based on what we see. But how that's going to work or what kind of restrictions might be in place, we're just waiting to see.
You mentioned the 4th of July. Is the plan to have the parade this year? I don't know if I've heard that.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know that I know an answer to that question yet. Do you?
They're still, because of the June 15th, they're still in discussion. So it's not no, but it's not yes. I'm cautiously optimistic as if we do open up and our numbers keep dropping as we're going to the yellow tier, that I would hope that we would have something, because as we all know, our residents and all of us need something, a shot in the arm of some positive environment. But at the same token, we have to be careful and follow the COVID guidelines. But if they have not made a permanent or a decision yet on not or for, so I think they're inching along to see how this happens within the next month and a half or so. So.
And would that be the same for the fireworks show as well, as on hold or waiting?
Yeah, I think that's waiting too. I mean, you know, just the crowd, as Eric was saying, the crowd is an issue and how they deal with that. But like I say, as we go to the yellow tier and drop that whole thing, I think it's going to change the dynamics. But I'm cautiously optimistic, but they have not made a permanent decision yet that I'm aware of.
Thank you. In light of those events and activities, it's been a while since we talked about Beer Walk, Wine Walk. Do we want to put this on our next agenda to start thinking about if that's something we might be interested in this fall?
I think so.
I think the biggest hindrance was, if it couldn't be inside businesses, that would totally change the dynamic. But if things are to be open, then it seems like that could open the door for us to do something again. And there's not going to be a fair this year. There's no competition from other activities. I think in the fall, people are especially going to be interested in looking for stuff to get out and do. Can we add that to the next agenda, Eric, please?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other comments or questions? And if not, we will adjourn and we'll actually get out of here a few minutes early. Thank you all for participating. We'll see what happens. See you later.
Thank you.